Welcome to this BCStrategies React video, and this is our first one, and thank you for joining us. If you're not familiar with the BCStrategies group, the BCStrategies group is a group of elite independent consultants, analysts, and thought leaders. And while we have lots of expertise in lots of different areas, we certainly don't lack opinions. And so this time, we thought we would react to the recent Enterprise Connect keynotes. And for the first one, we're going to take a look at the Microsoft Keynote. So I'm joined today by other BCStrategies experts, Ted Colton. Maybe you can just wave in our boardroom, Ted. David Maldow. And to my virtual, what side is this? To my virtual left or right? I don't know, Blair Pleasant. One of those sides, the wonders of virtual digital productions. Okay, David, so why don't we roll the first clip?
All right.
And our first keynoter is the VP for Microsoft Teams and Platform at Microsoft, Nicole Herskowitz.
Hello, I'm Nicole Herskowitz, and I'm so excited to be here at Enterprise Connect in person. After 2 years of participating in this event remotely, it's just an honor to be here with the community, so thank you.
Microsoft was certainly at the event.
It was great to see Microsoft there. I think that there was more Microsoft executives than ever before, and so that was great to see.
Yeah, they're not dabbling in our space anymore.
There's another story.
I think a lot of stuff is rotating around Microsoft at Enterprise Connect these days.
I don't think that's new. That's been going on for the last few years. They've had keynotes, they've had lots of sessions. So I don't think it's too new that they've got a big presence there. What I want to see is when they have a presence talking about contact center.
So why don't you move to the next clip? Because I think that this is why lots of people were talking about Microsoft.
I want to show you why 280 million people rely on Microsoft Teams to get the job done.
That's a big number.
So it'll be interesting to see, assuming that they do decouple, debundle Teams and Office, if that number is going to change.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Blair. That's a subset of the total M365, which now includes Office and Windows together. That's a subset of the total. So if they break it out, it'll be interesting to see what the actual daily active users is.
The other thing is just less than a month, they just did their earnings call. They reported 280. They just reported this week 300 million monthly active users. The growth is still up. I did the math, and 75% of the commercial Office seats are active users of Teams. That's a high percentage, but to both of your points, if Teams, as now is being rumored, is unbundled from the Microsoft Office suite, it'll be interesting to see what that does to the trajectory. I just wrote a no jitter piece. It's going to be posted later today. I believe it's actually going to potentially help Microsoft.
Interesting. Okay.
So there we go. But let's go to the next clip and see what Nicole had to say.
And why Teams is the market leader across meetings, calling, rooms, app integrations.
More stats. I think Brent Kelly and I in our session said they had 5 million plus telephony users in the last year. We figured that means they have a total of 15 million, which puts them at the largest multi-tenant UCaaS provider from a telephony perspective. That said 500,000 meeting rooms. And Kieller was talking recently and saying where their target used to be 1 million meeting rooms, now they're actually upgrading it to be talking maybe tens of millions of meeting rooms, because there has been some strong adoption of that.
Still a lot of space for growth in phones. That 20 million, that doesn't begin to take into what's out there to get.
The problem is that I think we've seen that PSTN usage by some industry experts' calculations has declined by 80%. Obviously, that's outside of the contact center, but for knowledge workers, because people are doing much more over the top and scheduled meetings.
Yeah, the other thing that's really interesting about the statistics is when you compare what analysts have reported recently in the fall in terms of the total number of meeting spaces enabled with video, That number, still single digit, hasn't changed in largely 10, 15, some could argue 20 years. But what Microsoft has done a tremendous job with their partners is they've lowered the cost. Remember, it wasn't too long ago, telepresence was $500,000 a throw for a room. And so we've moved from programmable logic chipsets to x86 and ARM. So it's really fascinating. And congratulations, Microsoft, for driving with a collective ecosystem. And of course, don't forget Cisco throwing in with Teams-enabled Cisco devices. So good traction.
I think we're going to get to that clip later, Ted, but there you go. Spoiler alert. David, why don't we move ahead?
In a sense, we want to reconnect people to the soul of work, and we're using next generation AI to do it. As you may have heard, we recently introduced Microsoft 365 Copilot, which brings the power of generative AI into the apps you use every day.
I think Copilot the demos that I saw were just amazing. We don't know what it's actually going to be able to do in real life, but if it can do even part of what we saw in the demos, I'm really impressed.
Yeah, and I'm going to add on to that, Blair. I think if we look back maybe 20 years ago, or maybe even a little bit longer, when Lotus Notes was king and the custom applications and business process, I think this term, collaboration-enabled business process, is really what Microsoft is signaling, and Copilot to generate apps on Power, Automate, and I think this is going to be the key, and I think this is where it's going to take off. So watch out, ServiceNow. Microsoft is coming after all of those custom apps.
Yeah, good point. Let's keep moving ahead because I think we've got some demos of Copilot.
Copilot combines the power of large language models with your data in Microsoft Graph and the Microsoft 365 apps, and is accessed through natural language, turning your words into the most powerful productivity tool on the planet.
Now, this I thought was key because every keynote that we're going to react to talked about AI. AI was sprinkled on everything.
Really, I hadn't heard the term AI at all.
There you go, because you weren't listening. No, I appreciate the sarcasm. I think that everybody can leverage a large language model, but like when Nicole talked about using the large language model plus your data, that's the key advantage that Microsoft has for organizations that are Microsoft shops, and that's most of the larger enterprises. Your documents are in OneDrive or SharePoint or Teams or Exchange. To use a large language model combined with all your other corporate data, and it's your data and it's all secure inside of Azure, I think that that's going to be a tremendous advantage that Microsoft has going forward.
It'll also help to ensure accuracy and that information is current and accurate, because all the stuff we've been hearing about ChatGPT, and the big issue is that it's not your data. You don't know if it's correct. So the fact that this is using your data is really going to help overcome a lot of the challenges and issues.
Let's go on to another example.
Let's say I ask Copilot to share a summary of the developments from the client from yesterday. Copilot will look through all my emails, my chats, my documents, my presentations, my Excel files, my meetings, to provide a helpful summary view with links to all of that source information. So here you can see that summary view created, and now you can see all of that source content that is referenced.
I think that's really the key, the link to the source information, because you know where the information is coming from. So that helps to ensure trust, which is really important. And again, that accuracy. So I think that's a real big differentiator.
I think you're right, Blair. And I'll just say that this is going to help so much in just daily tasks. Instead of searching through all my various bits and bytes of information, I think the investments made over the last 5 years, the next piece of this is going to be low code, no code, by human people without a lot of software engineering experience, just basic people saying, hey, now based upon that data, can you help me figure out how I can reconcile my supply chain and a variety of apps around that? That's the next piece.
Let's go to the next demo, David.
This is an intelligent recap. It's an AI-powered view that is designed specifically for me. It breaks the meeting down into chapters, into topics, and other important information for me. Like, for example, if I was mentioned in the meeting. So I can jump to the information most relevant to me. Now, I can also see all the content that was used in the meeting. I can see a summary of the notes and all the action items. It's all here in one smart view. Now, I can make Intelligent Recap even smarter with Copilot. Maybe I want to understand some more specifics or context of the meeting. I can use the smart prompts that are provided by Copilot, or I can ask my own questions, just like I did here. I really want to understand the customers and the factors considered in the discussion. Copilot gives me an easy-to-consume bulleted summary. And maybe I want to dig a little deeper. Why was one customer the leading proposal? Once again, Copilot summarizes the answer and even provides links to the citations in the transcript if I want to get more information.
I think this really takes it beyond what the other vendors are doing. Everyone's talking about summarization and action items and tasks and things like that. That's not a big deal right now. But the Copilot is really taking it to the next step. What does it mean to me? And summarizing how this can help me do my job and make me more productive. So the summarization, okay, that's cool, but it's the other stuff that Nicole just showed on top of that that I think is really different and really sets Copilot apart.
Yeah, the fact that it knows, it's not just giving me a summary, but it's giving me the summary in the context of my world, of my work. I don't think it's too far-fetched to say, I could talk to it like it's in a person and say, hey, I missed the 3 o'clock meeting, what do I need to know? They're pushing Project 5, you're mostly done with your Word doc on that. You should open that up and finish it off. You know, not just knowing that the project is due soon, because that's what they said in the meeting, but knowing what I'm working on. It sounds like science fiction, but it is happening now.
It's really that personal assistant that we all really want. And it's making all of us have that personal assistant.
I think what's really fascinating about this is that it appears that AI exploded onto the scene just a few months ago with these announcements of Copilot. But if we go back 3-4 years ago, Microsoft's on stage and was talking about the Microsoft Graph API. And that's really the underpinnings of this. It is your data, but now via the Graph API and Copilot, that's where these connections come together. And that's where the magic happens. And it's really cool that this has been a long planned effort. It's not something that's brand new. It's not reactive. This has been part of the journey, part of what's the story that's being told for many years now.
That's a great point, Ted. Brent Kelly and I from Omdia did that comparison session, Ring Central, Zoom, Cisco WebEx, and Microsoft Teams. It was interesting to me that Ring Central and Zoom already have meeting recap capabilities, and right now generally available, like Copilot is still in a very limited preview. So WebEx and Microsoft, they didn't have that meeting summary capability available, but like what Nicole showed there, the ability to be able to query it and not just get a summary, like a summary is fantastic, but to do what she did. And then I think the next clip is even going to show something that is potentially more impressive or scary. So run that clip.
I'm going to ask Copilot to catch me up. So I'm going to go right here and get a recap of the meeting. They're continuing to have the conversation. I'm not stopping them from making the discussion move forward. It's all just going to become available right here for me. I get this great summary of their thinking related to Copilot and in Copilot about Project X. And I think this is super interesting.
Okay, that wasn't the scary part. I think but that was.
Should I go right to the next one? Or?
Yeah, I think it might be the next one, but that is just like joining a meeting halfway through. So you're late to a meeting, so you don't have, that's okay. So that gets you catch up and you can pretend you're there all the time.
I just want to make one quick comment on that. I want to make one comment on that demo. There was a lot of demos at Enterprise Connect, and a lot of them were demos. We know what demos are, right? They're setup demos. And someone on Twitter made a point of, hey, we have all this AI. Why was every AI demo faked? Why didn't we have a real demo? And Ilya got into Twitter and he's like, nah, this is real. And everybody's like, oh, come on. When it did what we're about to show you, that you actually had a meeting going and people were doing a normal meeting and talking. Come on. And Ilya's like, I got a video, I got signed notarized statements. It was really legit. So I just thought it was a funny thing on Twitter, but just, I want to give them credit. There were a lot of demos, and this was an actual demo.
That's a great point, because when we look at the other keynotes, if you've seen them, they're less real.
Which is okay. That's what Enterprise Connect is for.
But to really get the magic of Copilot, it's not just about summarizing information. It's about giving you insights into the sentiment of the meeting. I haven't been here. I really want to understand how the team is feeling and what's going on in the meeting. So I'm going to ask, what is the mood of the meeting? Here we go. We'll see what Copilot tells us. Once again, it's looking across that transcript. It's looking for the signals of what's been going on in the meeting. And it says, you know what? It's been a little tense and there's been some conflicts.
I'll do it in post. I'll put up a Zoom so people watching so you could see that clearer, because the response was amazing. It was hard to see there, but it was amazing.
That's fascinating. And that was the part that I thought was not scary in a bad way, but just scary in a very interesting way, that you can read the telemetry and come up with that.
Yeah, I think it is really fascinating. And as we look to solve this hybrid remote work in person, this really becomes a key for inclusion. How's Kevin feeling? Kevin hasn't said anything, and what he has said, here's the tone of his language, and so it can prompt. And so this really becomes a game changer for just solving this inclusivity.
It's not just cool, it's a big deal.
Absolutely.
And a little scary.
So let's keep moving along.
Now, some of you may remember that we launched Microsoft Teams 6 years ago here today at Enterprise Connect. We are choosing this exact same stage to introduce you to the new Microsoft Teams.
It's only been 6 years because they're so dominant now. It seems like it's recent. It doesn't seem like it could be so quick.
But it had different iterations before that.
There was Link, there was Skype for Business. That's fair.
Yeah. Oh, no, but this was Teams was launched 6 years ago at Enterprise Connect. And here's where I would say, like, the Copilot stuff is awesome, and really kudos to Microsoft. This new Teams, I felt like, because they wanted to honor the announcing it at Enterprise Connect, it seems a little rushed. I don't know, like, you've got a toggle switch and they're encouraging everybody to toggle it over. But the new Teams, and I think it's supposed to be faster, stronger, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, it's not yet really ready for prime time. So I'm sure it's going to be, but I think Enterprise Connect probably came about 6 months earlier than they would have liked. At least that's been the feedback that I've received when you flip that toggle. You don't have all the features of the old Teams, so.
Yeah, I never liked the toggling for a new thing. WebEx does that sometimes. They'll have a new version you could toggle between the new and the old. I think just give us the updates and move us all along and keep us all in the same place. I don't think Zoom has ever toggled on us, and it just makes it easier for users to
David, they
continue.
have to do the toggle because you have to be able to toggle back. I think it's just that they wanted to be able to announce it and let people try it. And when you turn it off, it actually asks you, hey, why are you turning this off? And it says it was missing a feature or didn't work or whatever. And when I do that, I like right now, all the integrations of even the third-party apps, but even the first-party apps, they don't work in the new Teams as recently as this week. Maybe next week they'll be working. So that was something. So let's move on to where they're going to start talking. I think they're talking in more detail about the new Teams. And I think they introduced Derek Snyder to come on.
So now let me bring up Derek Schneider to show us why you are going to love the new Teams. Thank you.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
Don't go anywhere yet. Don't go anywhere yet. I'm going to rope you into this. It's great to be here in the Gaylord Palm snow globe. I've never been in a giant biosphere before, but this is very exciting for all of us.
You can see new Microsoft people have never been to the Gaylord Palm.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying at the beginning. There are more Microsoft people this year than I believe ever before.
Yeah, just a little side note about Enterprise Connect at the Gaylord. This notion, it used to be that Cisco had hundreds of people at the end, and Microsoft had fewer. It's interesting to see that inflection. For those that have been to the Gaylord and aren't wowed by the biosphere of Gaylords across the globe.
And then while Derek showed off the new Teams, and as I said, it's better, faster, uses less resources. And then I think what happened is they transitioned to start talking about the devices. So why don't we roll that clip as they brought on Elia.
Want to encourage you all to try the new public preview of Microsoft Teams. It's available at aka.ms/new era of Teams. Definitely try it. Please welcome Ilya Buchstein, the VP of Calling and Devices. Thanks, Ilya.
Thanks, Derek. Hello, it is such a privilege for me to be back here in person. This is such a special event and a special audience for us. I've spent most of my career working on products that empower IT professionals like all of you. And I deeply appreciate all of the work that goes into deploying experiences like Teams for your users. So I just want to start by saying thank you. All of you took a giant bet on Teams 6 years ago.
Did you take a giant bet on Teams 6 years ago?
I saw, because I talked to Microsoft, and they said they're putting like 90% of their development resources to Teams, because at that time, 6 years ago, Skype for Business was on-prem and it was working pretty well. I was helping deploy it at organizations with hundreds of thousands of users, and it was working. And now they are going to introduce this cloud product that has less capabilities initially. But then when you talk to Microsoft, they're saying, all of our engineering resources are shifting over to Teams. You could read the tea leaves. They were making a huge bet on the cloud, which has turned out to be a very good bet for them. And I think organizations were slow. If you look at the growth, it was slow, but then the pandemic, in a span of a year, they added 100 million users because they were forced to. I like Elia because he's a huge defender. And what you said, David, is he engages, right? If you say, hey, this is how this is, if you're wrong, like he is all over social media and he's very engaging and upfront and provides a lot of details. And obviously he's proud of kind of what Microsoft Teams has been able to do.
Let's not forget, I think that's a little bit of revisionist history. It was Brian McDonald that launched Teams. He didn't launch it in Enterprise Connect. It was New York City. But
he announced, yeah.
Remember, it was a response to the Slack, the momentum that Slack had. Kudos to Microsoft to move and to adjust and to then make that transition from Skype for Business, as you said, on-prem, deeply rooted in classic unified communications modality, voice, messaging, video, and then to move it and to add more capabilities and really just kind of push Slack aside. And who could forget Slack's full-page article in response? Right?
Yes, the New York Times. It's welcome. We appreciate the competition. I think today they don't appreciate the competition quite as much.
Yeah.
Good.
Me, it seemed more like a natural progression to me. I guess I wasn't that surprised by Teams because it just seemed like it was the natural thing for Microsoft to do, and everyone was moving everything to the cloud. Collaboration was becoming king as other things took a backseat. I don't know. I guess it just seemed natural to me that Microsoft would go so strong in this.
I think you're right, Blair, but and we've already talked about this. Look, it was literally almost 20 years ago to the day Microsoft announced its intention to acquire Placeware. That was the beginning of the journey. That plus Greenwich Server, which led to LCS, OCS, Link, Skype for Business with the acquisition of Skype, and then Teams being introduced. So it has been this continual progression, and that I think is to be applauded.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I do want to give them credit though, just real quick, because I think I like to pick on Microsoft because it's fun, they're big, they could take it, but I really got to give them credit here because not all companies did get it. It did seem obvious to us. It seemed obvious to a lot of people that Slack was the way. People want to be in team chat all day, escalate to video and other means. It's the way we work. And a lot of big companies didn't get it, and Microsoft did get it. And I joked before, who bet on Microsoft? Who bet on Teams? Microsoft bet on Teams. Microsoft does a lot of things, and it's very easy for them to say, oh, it's obvious we should do this, we'll dabble in this, because we dabble in a lot of things. They made the bet to not dabble and go big and hard, and I have to give them full credit. I can't pick on them this time. They really went all in, and they didn't say it's going to be good enough to do this, good enough to do this. No, Teams has to be really good for real.
Good point. Let's go to the next clip.
And let's start by talking about Teams Phone. Thanks to all of you, Teams Phone is now the clear market leader in cloud communications, with over 5 million PSTN-enabled users added just last year.
So two things I already mentioned. So the 5 million, they're not quoting a total number, but Brent Kelly and I figured out it's about 15 million, we would say. So that gives them the lead. But what do you think? Because I see everybody who's been in the telecom industry for a long time, phone was the gold standard. But once again, I mentioned earlier, 80% reduction for many organizations in PSTN calling. And while there's a huge battle for providing the voice, the PBX, the PSTN calling piece, to me, meetings, and especially these Copilot AI assisted meetings, that's really where most people are spending the majority of their time. Will people stop fixating on some of these telephony numbers, or is that still going to be something that they battle over?
You take me right back to VoiceCon, right? That was the battle many years ago. I think, again, I'm going to follow David. I'm going to applaud Microsoft. There's still a critical use for PSTN. It's not a growing market per se, but having this capability, being able to provide segments of the user population with this capability in direct response to what Zoom has been doing with Zoom Phone and so forth, I got to give them credit. They pulled it off, and it's impressive. It's impressive, the trajectory over the last 12 months.
And also what it's done to the industry. Some competitor RingCentrals, the 8x8s and all these others, it's really hard for them now because competing with Microsoft is just very difficult. And Microsoft really just took up all the air in the room with this in this area.
That phone isn't, I don't think it's the future, and if phone is sure as heck is not sexy, but it's a lot of money on the table for the next several years, next foreseeable years, and Microsoft is going to just grab a bunch of it because they can. Why not?
And maybe I'm tipping my hat here a little bit, but I think it's important because the customers ultimately said, we really can't have a separate PSTN solution. We need it to all be encompassing. So can you address that for us? And we've heard that refrain across many areas of communications and collaboration for years.
Yeah. And I think that with AI, and because data fuels AI, having telemetry from all your modalities is increasingly a reason where previously you might have wanted it all to be on one system because it was simplification for the users and for the IT pros. Maybe there was financial benefits due to bundling. But now you layer over that the AI piece and understanding the meetings and your calls and having transcripts for all of them, whether they're PSTN or internal, that is going to increasingly drive people to look to integrate all of these pieces together if they haven't already. Now, Microsoft mentioned a bunch of additional features, as they always do. I think there's just one, I think we have a clip of one that I thought was interesting.
Another key request has been to enable customers to connect to your business from your web applications. So I'm thrilled to announce Click to Call. This is a widget your developers can add into your applications that quickly enable people to connect to your subject matter experts within your business living in Teams.
So this is what you said earlier, Ted, that communication-enabled business process. They had these widgets before with Link. They had these widgets with Skype for Business, and now they're all old things are new again. They're now introducing them with Teams. You can see where now that's even another channel. Now you have all your web customers that just click and make a non-PSTN call, but an over-the-top internet call into, as Elia said, your subject matter expert. So this, one of the many feature announcements, this one stood out for me.
Yeah, and totally building on what Ted said earlier and what you just said. This is what we at BCStrategies, formerly UCStrategies, were talking about since day one, communications to optimize business processes and really tying in the click to call and the communication capabilities into those business applications. So this is bringing to life what we've been talking about for years now.
Yeah, and the multi-vendor best-of-breed approach was really because of technological limitations and the maturity of the market. And so now with this complete platform, it's pretty impressive. And when you look at the continuity of the effort and the delivery of the value across multiple leaders, starting with Anup Gupta to Gurdeep to then to Sig, and then to Bob Davis, and now it's just remarkable, right? It's just been this steady execution.
So now as the Microsoft snowball, in a sense, rolls down the hill and keeps getting bigger, we talked about people integrating. So this next clip, this was maybe not a surprise to us, but it was an interesting guest to join them into the Microsoft keynote.
This is a Cisco Desk Pro running the Teams display experience, and you can see it's fully mine. My calendar, my activity feed, my meetings. In fact, let me take a meeting here. I've got one coming up with kind of a special guest, and let me turn it the right way so I don't break the cords. So I've got a meeting right here with a very special friend. Let me introduce him to all of you. It is my pleasure and privilege to introduce Snorri from Cisco. Welcome to Enterprise Connect.
Hello, Ilya. I've just been watching your presentation while getting ready here for the Cisco keynote, and we're so excited about being a certified device partner for Microsoft Teams.
So I thought that was big. Cisco makes beautiful, well-engineered, like lovely devices. I spent some time in California with Snorri and got to try out some of the devices running in the native Teams mode. But that's a big thing. Here you have Cisco taking the time and effort to certify their devices as native Teams devices. They also have certified their WebEx contact center as a Teams certified contact center. What do you all think about Cisco's play?
First, I'm just going to start by saying the customers, especially in the global enterprises, have been screaming at the highest pitch and volume for decades for this to happen. So congratulations to both companies, because they literally want Cisco hardware around Microsoft's platform. So that's fantastic. I also think it's a brilliant move by Cisco. Great opportunity to take market share, to serve them, and to squeeze out and wring out more value, more EBITDA performance based upon their investments in hardware.
I'm just going to second that. I'm sorry, but I don't care what's good for the companies. I care what's good for the customers and the users, and they just want more of this. What we saw is great. Okay, now every service on every device, easy to start any meeting at any time, just more and more of it. So yeah, this is good.
And Cisco is doing this with Zoom and with others also, just really trying to make interoperability a reality, which again, customers want and demand. So the vendors are basically just doing what's been needed for a while.
Yeah, and every Enterprise Connect before this, it was always Cisco Camp, Microsoft Camp. And every customer has just said, can you guys just get together? You do brilliant networking and security. Microsoft, you do great productivity. Can you just come together? So congratulations to both for making it happen.
That's a great point, Ted. And you'll hear more of this if you watch our BCStrategies Reacts to the Cisco keynote, because Snorri also dives into this integration a little bit deeper. And with that, I think, David, we're up to the final clip.
So let's make sure all of our teams, from research labs to factory floors, from headquarters to the field, at home, in the office, and everywhere in between, have what they need to come together and bring their best. Let's give them the modern workplace, Microsoft Teams.
So clearly that's the final world domination call to action. All in all, some real demos, some announcements, a bunch of people. I thought that was a well done keynote. They shared vision, but also showed some real here and now and some near future as well. So what did you all think of it as a keynote?
That seemed to be the general consensus. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
From just everyone I was talking to, it was a strong keynote. And like I said, people like to make fun of Microsoft because they're big and they could take it. But yeah, it goes along with what we've been saying. I think the theme throughout this whole discussion is that they're getting it right. They're getting it right here. And they got it right, not just with Teams, but with the keynote.
Yeah, and I just want to say Nicole's fabulous. She represents Microsoft extremely well. She's got a brilliant team, understands the value to the customer, to the ecosystem at large. So great job, Nicole. Great to have you there. The second thing I'll say is, remember, we can go back and people would say, I remember one of our esteemed colleagues at the announcement of Placeware, the acquisition, let's see if Microsoft can actually deliver services. Yeah, Microsoft can deliver services, and they have. So I know we talked a little bit about contact center. Watch out.
And I think to David's point that this was real and live and the demos weren't just videos, I think really speaks very highly to Microsoft's capabilities, and also the demo gods were working in their favor that day, which doesn't always happen. But I think that's very impressive that they trusted themselves and their technology enough to do that live.
And for those who haven't been to the Gaylord, that internet connectivity.
Yes, we've seen many fails.
We've seen many fails.
That's a very good point. Thank you, BCStrategies experts, and thank you to Microsoft for a great keynote that we could react to. If you've watched this, check out, we're going to be reacting to the Cisco keynote and the Google and the Zoom and the other keynotes from Enterprise Connect. You can follow us and find us at bcstrategies.com, and then we're all individually reachable on LinkedIn. Thank you very much until next time. And thanks to David for his video wizardry.
This is the first episode, so bear with me. We'll get better with it.